Hello, Yeah. Practitioner Tuesday training. It's nice to be here with you guys. I'm Gina Schatz. I'm your host. We are going to talk for the next hour about structural balancing and biomechanics and functional anatomy and all the ways that we can work clinically to get our clients out of pain because that's what we're here for. We meet every week at this time in the same place. I know there's so many of you that are here for the first time today. We've been watching and seeing you guys join us, so I'm so happy that you're here. If you are here for the first time, I'm happy to know that you are here. Happy to meet you. Thanks for joining us. We're going to chat for about an hour, and within that hour's time, there will be plenty of Q&A opportunities. So if you're here on um, in the club seats, if you jump in on the club seats, of course, you know to use the chat. And also, if you're here on the YouTube channel watching while we're here live, please feel free to use the chat comment section there, and I will happily answer your questions. Today's topic is on intrinsic core, and this is a big, big, big deal for a variety of reasons, which I will share with you as we move through our training today. I am not over exaggerating when I say learning this was a career changer for me, career changer. So I want that to happen for you as well. And if you've already seen or heard me talking about intrinsic work before, then this will be a lovely place for you to dive in a little bit deeper. And if you've not heard of intrinsic work before, again, career changer. So for both manual and movement practitioners, this matters, big deal. So we're going to talk about that for the hour. We're actually going to talk about it for the whole month. So it's our focus for the month here in April. Hey, Gary, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Hello, hello. Um, and I'm just looking for our streaming here on YouTube to make sure that I can see you guys while you are here live with me, which I'm happy to, here we go, which I'm happy to follow along while you're here with me, making sure that I can answer your questions and see you. Okay. Um, so we're going to dive into intrinsic core, as I've already said. I'm going to share with you what that is if you've not heard of it before, and also why it's important. And again, for both manual and movement practitioners, this applies. Before we dive in and get started, of course, we are playing Pin It to Win It as we do every week so far this year. Pin It to Win It is a fun game where you can receive extra bonus training. It's my way of thanking you for being here and hanging in and showing me that you're hungry for stuff. So the way you play is in the bottom corner that we will pin letters throughout the training for today, through the whole hour that we're here. The letters create a word. You take the word, you pin it in the bottom of the comment section underneath this video in the YouTube channel. And our moderators will go in, it's my team, we'll go in and we'll find the word that you pinned, and we will send you extra training. No strings. It's literally, there's no strings attached. It's just to acknowledge you for being a hardy learner. So Pin It to Win It is happening today as always. And we'll continue moving on through that as we make our way through the day today. So how about we get into it, shall we? I would really love to be able to see this video. I'm holding my device next to me. I would really love to be able to see this video on my phone so that I could, here it is, so I could listen along with you guys while you're commenting in the chat section. I see you now. Hello. Hi to you guys who are here with me on YouTube. I'm happy that you're here. Give me a hand wave. Let me know that I made it. I already know I made it. I'm happy to see you guys. And please do let me know if you have questions. Okay. Intrinsic core. How many of you, so pop quiz right out of the gate, how many of you have heard of the different classifications of muscles, intrinsic versus phasic? Now, if you've been here with me on Tuesday training, yep, Gary's like me, I got it. If you've been here with me, you've definitely heard it because I've been talking about this for quite some time. Again, career changer for me. So I wanted to make sure that I absolutely shared the love. That is what I'm missioned to do while we're here each week. Intrinsic muscles and phasic muscles are very different. They're wired differently from the brain and they do very different things. And I'm going to outline for us again, or for the first time, exactly what the outline is of their role and responsibility. And this matters because when I was in school, first off in massage therapy school, like some of you, I had to memorize all the muscles. So I thought I had to memorize the muscles and where they attached and their origin and insertion and what bony landmark they attached on. All awesome, super awesome, great information. However, there was not this difference between intrinsic and phasic. There was just muscles. And I've come to learn in the most recent years that it's still not being talked about in school. which is super confusing for me actually, based on what I know about intrinsic and how important it is. But I did have a student who was getting a master's degree in physical science come to one of my live CE courses on anatomy. And I was, of course, talking intrinsic versus phasic, like I do at every level of every course that I offer, because it's such a big deal. And she raised her hand in the very back of the room and raised her hand and said, "Can you spell that word? What is that?" And I spelled it and didn't know what her background was. And she's like, I'm getting a master's degree right now and I've never heard of that. I thought, wow, isn't that interesting? Like, even at, from beginner massage therapy and yoga and personal training levels, all the way up through master's levels, this is not being distinguished enough for my liking. Because again, career changer, it changed the game. It literally was the last step that I needed to create a registered trademark in a method that wasn't being offered in other places in other ways or in similar ways. And again, that's why I think it's so important. It's the linchpin, if you will. If that's the right word, I don't know. It was the final, yeah, thanks, Gary. Okay, so it was this final spot where I was generating great results doing, orthopedic type body work and manual therapy. Um, Still do great massage, still do yoga, but I was really honed in on like getting rid of orthopedic restrictions and I was doing pretty well. But there were a handful of patients of mine, I'd say probably 25%, that I just couldn't get it to stick. I couldn't figure out like what was the difference between the ones where it worked and the ones where it didn't, and the ones where it worked, but then it returned. And I knew there was something missing. I just knew there was something missing and I couldn't figure it out. At that time, my office was just coated with books, as yours probably are too. All the books that I'd taken from all the degrees that I had and all the times in, school. And I was staring at the books thinking there's got to be something in one of these books that I forgot. Because, we only learn what we learn, retain 20% of it, something I must have needed to revisit. And I started revisiting in all those books. Couldn't find it, couldn't find it, couldn't find it. So when I finally found it, it was an instinctive thing that got me looking in another corner of the world where I hadn't looked before. When I finally found it, this work on intrinsic muscles, and started applying it, suddenly I was like hitting home runs. Like every client, regardless of their constitution, it was working. And I thought, wow, seems like it's too easy. That one thing, it was like too easy. It's not easy. It's hard for them, the patients. Not hard for me, easy for me, but wow, look at this wide variety of results. Like, this is awesome. And then, of course, the method came to be, and then I started teaching it. And now here we are, present day, where we're still hearing from folks at a master's level where they don't have this information. Now, some of us do, obviously. I'm not the only one on the planet who has it, but it's not widely known enough for my liking. So we are going to spend the entire month of April pouring into each other on this very topic, intrinsic muscles. I like to call it intrinsic core because there's some confusion between what are core muscles versus what are intrinsic muscles, if they're the same, if they're not the same. And if you guys have heard this before, please let me know. Like, let me know in the chat here. Yes, you've heard it. You know exactly what it is. This is just going to be review for you, or no, brand new. And can't wait for you to tell me, Gina, because I want to know all of it. Let me know where you are on that spectrum so I'll know how much of this we get to review. But muscles are in two classifications, phasic and intrinsic, as I've said. Phasic muscles, we know the names of largely. Our patients and clients know the names of them. We study them and we know their joint actions. Okay, because phasic muscles do gross motor movement, big muscles, big movements, joint actions associated with, like all the joint actions we've talked about when we walked through our 8 principles of functional anatomy. Hip extension, hip flexion, elbow extension, knee flexion, spine rotation, all of those muscles that create a joint action are in this category of phasic muscles, big movement, joint actions. And that's important to know if you're a manual practitioner, because you want to know what muscles you should target that can or can't do the work, the movement that your client's trying to do. And if you're a movement practitioner, clearly you want to know what the phasic muscles are because you want to know what you should be instructing. Okay, cool. All that registered. However, there's this other gigantic group of muscles classified as intrinsic. They don't do joint actions. They don't do big movements. They don't walk you across the floor. They don't get you to lift your arm over your head. Their role is twofold, completely different from phasic muscles. Gary, do you remember what they are? Do you want to be hot seated? Do you remember the role of intrinsic muscles?
Um, they're more of a supportive, um, kind of a secondary support to the movement, and
Second,
and they don't kick in initially. I think, isn't that right? They don't kick in. They kick in if they're needed. I don't know.
okay, got a little fuzzy there. I love that you jumped in and tried. That's so beautiful. So I think what you were referring to, like the stabilizing in a muscle or in a joint in a movement, excuse me, that's the reciprocal inhibition. That's more like the stabilizers of reciprocal inhibition, which could still be phasic muscles, by the way. Intrinsic, completely different. Intrinsic role is not about movement, stabilizing the movement, making the movement, preventing the movement. It's not about that. The role of intrinsic muscles is posture and balance. Yeah, you knew it. I knew you knew it. Posture and balance, posture and balance, posture and balance, not movement, not stabilizing movement, not supporting movement, not preventing movement, not allowing movement. It's not reciprocal inhibition. Intrinsic muscles do posture and balance. Posture and balance. That is the action that they do. When they contract, they are creating posture. When they contract, they are creating balance. Completely different group of muscles. And they are wired differently, and we need to target them differently, whether you're, again, manual or movement practitioner. So when we think about posture, what comes to mind for you when you think about posture? We've talked about posture in lots of ways. It means lots of things to lots of people. Gary, what comes to mind for you when you talk about posture?
Alignment.
Alignment.
Mhm.
I love this. Yes. Posture is alignment. Posture is usually something that a client's never going to schedule a session with you. I'd like a whole session to have you update my posture. They're just not, it's just not a very big draw, right? And it has so much to do with alignment. And we have talked for many, many weeks on different iterations of alignment and how alignment matters for phasic muscle engagement. Alignment matters for joint action and reciprocal inhibition. Alignment matters for safe movement. So there is a relationship here between phasic muscles and intrinsic muscles. They rely on each other, they depend on each other, but they don't do the same thing. So the muscles that create alignment, like the four curves of the spine, the muscles that are designed to hold these four curves in place, not move the curves, not create spine flexion, not create joint rotation, spine rotation, or lateral flexion, not those muscles, but the muscles that are designed to hold us upright. We know the names of them, erector spinae. They hold the spine upright. That's their job, to hold the spine erect, not to move it. It doesn't say rotation spinae. It says erector spinae, hold the spine in four balanced curves. Erector spinae are the muscles that hold the spine upright, but in that uprightness, there's four curves that they must navigate and hold those four curves in alignment to create the optimal posture of the upright spine. Not the same as moving the spine. So that would be a great example and a first example of an intrinsic muscle, right? Posture, alignment, and posture. They're also, let me slow down there. So alignment, like holding the spine, and the posture that comes from that aligned spine with four curves. Posture, alignment, intrinsic muscles. Part two. I'm going to take a deep breath and pause in between sentences. I'm very excited about this topic, guys. Part two. Posture can also be we, our clients are opposing gravity, right? So I can have, for example, erector spinae muscles that hold my spine upright, and gravity can still have its way with me, and I can still slouch. Even though I have erector spinae and they have their assigned job and they're awesome at it. And gravity is the nemesis of intrinsic muscles, always. So it's sort of an interesting puzzle there, right? Like if I'm designed with muscles that hold my posture in neutral and optimal alignment, and that's their job and that's what they're supposed to do, but yet I live on the planet where gravity exists, and that's going to always challenge my ability to have posture. Well, now it seems like every client should be scheduling sessions to help us with their posture, and yet it doesn't sell. Like nobody wants that. We don't want that either. But we as practitioners need to know that intrinsic muscles are engaged, which means they are contracted and strong and doing their job when they oppose gravity. We need to know that. So if we recognize that an intrinsic muscle needs some help in the body, if we're now in a pickle and the client has symptoms and we need to get in there and work things out, in order for us to bring intrinsic muscles back into the game, they've got to be opposing gravity while they're in the game. If they're not opposing gravity, they're not in the game. They're present, but they're not in the game. Example, like we said, erector spinae are here. They're here. But unless they're opposing gravity and holding their engagement, their action, holding the spine upright, which is an action, unless they're holding the spine upright, erector spinae are just present but not strong and engaged if gravity is present and opposing the engagement of intrinsic muscles. Does this make sense? Is this landing for you, Gary? This feels like review for you? Perfect. I love that it's review for you. All right. So that's part two of intrinsic muscles, and I'm going to give you a third, and that is on this idea of balance. So remember, we said that intrinsic muscles do both posture and balance. So posture meaning alignment, posture meaning opposing gravity, and balance as their secondary job. Balance means like I can stand on one leg. If I can stand on one leg, I'm balancing because I'm designed to have two legs. I'm designed to have an architecture that roots me down into the earth. If I take one of those columns away from the earth, now I'm balancing on one instead of rooted in two legs. That's just based on our design. And we're designed to do that because we have intrinsic muscles. We are designed to balance. We have intrinsic muscles. That's their job. So if I'm balancing on one leg instead of standing on two, I need intrinsic muscles to get that job done. In order for me to stand on one leg, I need intrinsic muscles to help me do that job. I need phasic muscles too if I'm walking, but I also need intrinsic muscles. And again, the intrinsic muscles can be there and they cannot be engaged. Like my erector spinae can be on my spine and not be engaged if I'm slouching towards the ground. They're not doing their job of erecting my spine. So intrinsic muscles can be present and not be doing their job, like any muscle, but definitely with intrinsic muscles too. And how we see that is the posture less than optimal? Is the balance askew and not happening? So if someone can't stand on one leg, it's the lack of intrinsic muscles that's preventing that, in addition to any phasic muscle that's needed. Why is that important? For a couple reasons. It's important that we be able to balance standing on one leg as an example, because gait is a one-legged activity. We think it's two because we got two legs moving, but in between each step, we are one-legged. We broke that down in our gait masterclass. It's really important to recognize those gait patterns. And again, this is important for manual and movement practitioners because if I'm a movement practitioner and I'm asking someone to do one-legged anything or walking or running, they need intrinsic muscles to do that job. Otherwise, the movement is distorted. There's a compensatory pattern in the body somewhere that's allowing the movement to look like it's happening, but it's not being done the way the body's designed to do it. And if I'm a manual practitioner, the same information matters because my client is injured and uncomfortable from whatever they did movement wise or whatever they didn't do that they were supposed to do movement wise. And now they're with me passive on the table and I'm supposed to fix it. I need to know what the movement was or wasn't and what's required of the body to make that movement optimal so I know what to target when they're on the table. So the information's the same about the body's design, whether you are a manual or a movement practitioner, But what you do with it is different because you do different things in your treatment setting, meaning I don't strengthen people if I'm a manual practitioner necessarily, and I don't strip fibers if I'm a movement practitioner. I'm moving. So we do different things, but we need the same information to be able to do them well and with efficiency. And especially if you're here to create change in someone who's got a pain pattern, you need to know what's missing that precipitated the pattern that caused the pain, not just eradicate the symptoms. And you guys know I'm not a symptom smacker, so we gotta like get in there and figure this out. So not only do I need intrinsic muscles to one-legged stand, I need now, we've identified intrinsic muscles to walk, because that's a one-legged standing functional activity. Same is true for walking up a flight of stairs. Think about it in your mind's eye. Imagine that you've got your foot on the step and you're pressing down on that foot to go to the next step. Aren't you one-legged standing while your back foot is lifting up and over the step you're standing on before it places itself on the step above you? Walking up a flight of stairs is also a one-legged activity. So I need intrinsic muscles to help me safely get up and down a flight of stairs and to walk and to run. Okay, Gary, you're thinking about something? Yes, tell me what you're thinking. I can see your thinker tank on.
Yes. Maybe I'm jumping ahead here, but
That's okay.
um, when if you have identified that you can stand on one leg but not the other, um,
Hmm.
and you think, okay, these are intrinsic muscles that are weak on that
Mhm.
side.
Mhm.
Uh, in I guess just use physical therapy as an example. Physical therapy may give you uh, strengthening exercises for phasic muscles, but not intrinsic.
Mhm.
And so well, I guess, how do we separate that?
How do you
if we,
separate what?
well, for example, they're saying, well, you need to work on glute med and glute min and your glutes, and maybe your psoas, which are all phasics, and but there are obviously intrinsic muscles that are here that are not functioning. Otherwise, you'd be standing easily. So, I guess my question is, are there separate exercises you do for a phasic and intrinsic to strengthen them?
For sure. Yeah, because a phasic muscle would be strengthened during actions of the lever system because
Mhm.
they move joints. And intrinsic muscles don't move a lever system, so they need different actions to strengthen them.
Okay.
Yep, the way you strengthen a muscle, any muscle, phasic or intrinsic, is to give it its job. And that sounds really simplistic, but there's more to it, but not really. Hear me out. In order to strengthen glute max, for example, I need, which does hyperextension of the hip, okay, this rump shaker back here. In order for me to strengthen this muscle, I need to give it its job
Mhm.
so that it contracts. And when it contracts fully and repeatedly, strength will be developed in that muscle. But we know that it's not that simple because in order for that muscle to strengthen, the bones that it attaches to have to be in alignment to get maximum use out of that muscle. We did that in maximizing the lever system, our master class on that. So simply, if we have alignment and optimal patterning, if I want to strengthen this muscle, I'm going to give it its job. And provided everything is in alignment and the reciprocal inhibition muscles are all playing, it will strengthen. So simple and not super simple, but like the
Mhm.
concept is the same. In order for me to strengthen this muscle, I need to give it its job and then it will strengthen. In order for me to strengthen any muscle, I need to give it its job and then it will strengthen. I need
Okay.
to know what its job is and I need to be able to enlist it in doing its job. And it needs to do its job from an aligned perspective to get maximum power out of that muscle, and that will then increase its strength. Okay.
Mhm.
And I will add one more piece to that, which you just had in our club, in our functional anatomy formula. There's got to be function brought back in to create the repatterning and address the neuroplasticity that goes with it. So we don't want to just strengthen a muscle. For example, I know you're a manual practitioner, Gary. We could target a muscle and get it to contract even as a manual practitioner, and that's great. But if we haven't restored its contraction back into the functional pattern that it's used in, the brain doesn't remember the newly restored muscle. It remembers the last pattern it had with that muscle. And so we've not really finished the job. Again, this is why I like manual practitioners to have an understanding of functional movement. So you know what actually does finish the job. It doesn't mean you become a personal trainer in your office. It means once you targeted glute max and got it to fire on the table, did you also give that to your client while they were walking and extending their hip? Because if they just did it passively on the table, the body didn't remember how to use that in function. That's what that master class was about. Well, we did that in March in the club. You did that, right, Gary? You went through that master class?
Um,
Maybe not.
no, I didn't.
Okay. Well, that master class, again, we had that in our club last month. Now it's available on the website if you want it. But the reason why that formula exists is for this conversation. The question that you're asking, well, how do I do it? Like, great, Gina, I get that there's intrinsic muscles. How do I do it? You bring it back through alignment, then target the muscle and make it function the job that it's supposed to do. That's true for any muscle. So shorthand, simple answer, how do you get a muscle to strengthen? By giving it its job. And then you do it in a smart, full, comprehensive way from an aligned place, make sure it's targeted to strengthen and then restore its function. And that literally is how you finish the job.
So for clarification, then, with intrinsics and standing on one leg,
Mhm.
the function of the intrinsic muscle is to stay in posture and hold, hold balance. So if I'm saying, okay, I want to strengthen the intrinsic muscle of a leg, by standing on one leg for a certain period of time, wouldn't I be then helping to strengthen the intrinsic muscles that
Not
are,
necessarily, because that
oh,
standing might not be aligned,
okay.
right?
Hmm.
That standing and walking might not be aligned. So you said something really interesting. I know it's only one word, but it matters greatly when we get to muscle engagement, especially intrinsic. Intrinsic muscles are not designed to hold posture and balance. They are designed to create and hold posture and balance. So if I'm wobbling, it's not that I'm going to ultimately engage my intrinsic muscles to stop wobbling to their full capacity. I haven't had balance when I started, which means there were no intrinsic muscles there, or I wouldn't have wobbled. So you got to catch them before the balance is distorted. You got to catch them before the posture is distorted. So I'm not strengthening my erector spinae. You can see that I'm slouching now, right? I'm not strengthening my erector spinae by sitting up because my spine's not erect. Only when I restore the four balance curves am I now fully employing erector spinae for their job. Okay. So it does require a different approach than what we're used to when we just target phasic muscles. Do the movement bigger, do the movement with more reps, do the movement faster. And now I've phasically crossed that off the list. It's not the same with intrinsic. Again, it's a big nugget. It's like, I'm so glad you're asking these questions, Gary, because it matters. It matters in how we approach them. Got it? Okay. So next, when it comes to balance and intrinsic muscles and posture too, when it comes to balance and posture and employing intrinsic muscles, I've already mentioned here that gravity plays a role. The role of gravity is to keep us on the planet. I'm not upset about that. I don't want to be floating. I like to use my legs. But it is the nemesis to intrinsic muscle strength for all the ways we already just talked about. Gravity wants to pull me down on the earth, which is the challenge when I lift one leg and try to balance. If I lift one leg and try to balance, gravity's trying to pull me and keep me on the earth, which we want it to, but I will be challenged to stand on one leg unless my intrinsic muscles are engaged with this an equal amount of power that gravity is pulling on me, and that's how I create balance and strength in those muscles. Because you can only strengthen a muscle by giving it its job. So intrinsic muscles aren't getting strong if our posture isn't optimized and our balance isn't being challenged or employed. They're not. My erector spinae are not getting strong right now. They're there, but their job of holding my spine erect is not being employed. Therefore, they're not getting strong to do that job. Okay, so this matters the longer we're on the planet. This is not an ageist thing, by the way, guys. And this is again one of those huge openings that I had when I found this information and started in applying it. It's not about older has more propensity to injury. It's not about older. It's about how long has gravity been anchoring me on the earth, and how long have my intrinsic muscles been opposing that pull and holding me upright away from gravity. It's not an age thing, it's just a numbers game. But you could be in your 20s and not have intrinsic strength if your posture stinks. And you could also have it and then lose it because gravity is a constant. Gravity is a constant. It's like intrinsic muscles and gravity are in an arm wrestle, and they're both awesome. They both should win. It's not a winner or a loser. But in an arm wrestle, it's typically a winner and a loser, unless they're both equally powerful, and then nobody loses an arm wrestle. Gravity is just as strong as the guy who's arm wrestling you, and then they both win, and then arm wrestle looks like this. There's no loser in that. So we got to think about intrinsic muscles are only engaged when they're opposing gravity to do posture and to do balance. My erector spinae muscles are only getting stronger if I'm lifting my spine up off of my pelvis, away from the earth, and holding my spine upright with these four curves. My erector spinae are not getting stronger if I'm slouching. They have to be opposing gravity, which then restores that posture and alignment. And so it's all happening at the same time. Posture and alignment and balance and opposing gravity and increasing intrinsic strength are simultaneous actions that have to be happening with the same amount of consistency that gravity is challenging all of that. And that's the thing about aging. It's not aging. It's like, how long has gravity been winning the arm wrestle? Are you flat on the bar table? Did you not engage any intrinsic muscles at all? Well, gravity won and you feel uncomfortable, and we're going to call that age. It's not age because you still have the muscles. You don't lose the muscles over time. You lose strength in them over time, but they're still there. You can still engage them and contract them and get them stronger. In fact, I appeal to all of us, you should. Because without the strength of intrinsic muscles holding our spine upright, we're going to be uncomfortable at any age. A client whose posture is like this, and you can imagine what I look like right now. You don't even have to see it. At any age, a client whose posture does not look like the way they're designed and looks like this instead, at any age, they're going to have back discomfort. It's not an age thing. It's an intrinsic muscle thing. And so when those clients come to us as manual practitioners with back discomfort and we release everything, have we gained strength intrinsically to get those erector muscles to stay back upright and oppose No. If you've not been with me yet, you will hear me say 1,000 more times, releasing everything as a manual practitioner is not a good idea, and stretching everything as a movement practitioner an equally not good idea. And if that challenges you, you're not going to like the rest of what I have to say, but I'm here to prove it. I just did. That doesn't work. Stripping these fibers when someone's uncomfortable because their posture looks like this is not going to remedy the situation for them. In fact, it'll probably irritate it and make it worse. What's needed is the engagement of these muscles to hold them upright. And as manual and movement practitioners, both of us get to know that. Absolutely. So balance gets challenged the longer we're on the planet. Posture gets challenged the longer we're on the planet. When, a certain demographic of clients has a grave injury, it's because they fell. Why? Because they didn't have balance, which means they didn't have intrinsic strength. It's not because they didn't have an arm rail on their stairs. It's because they couldn't one-legged stand on their way up or down. That's, some people say it's coordination. It's balance. It's enough strength to stand on one foot, to walk to the bathroom, to climb the flight of stairs. Why are ranch homes so popular? Just to avoid the one-leggedness, to not have to use those muscles that are getting weaker. And so, like, I'm not saying nobody should live in a ranch home, but think about it. If we need those muscles to be able to one-legged stand, do we want to stop using them? Or do we want to teach our clients to use them more efficiently and more regularly? I'm in the camp for the latter. I don't want people to shuffle when they walk and be afraid of a flight of stairs and never sit upright or be challenged to do that because their spine doesn't allow them to anymore at this stage. Well, we as practitioners should have prevented that. You know, for putting aside the potential of pathology, if it's just an intrinsic weakness that continues over time, again, the longer you're on the planet and gravity is pulling you down, you will shape and mold to that power unless you oppose it with your own internal power. Then you're strengthened intrinsically. Then you can stand on one leg, you can climb a flight of stairs, and the risk of you falling diminishes from a purpose of balance. That's our job. We get to prevent that for folks and not just have them lay on the table and release everything for an hour every week while they're in retirement. That's not going to help. Not if we know these muscles and how they work. So I just want us to be really thoughtful about that. Like, well, what does this person really need? What's actually being called for from the body? They're going to have discomfort either way. But what does the discomfort mean? We want to be able to strategically think through, what does the discomfort mean? What's the body saying? And what's needed here? And if you are a manual practitioner and you don't want to deal with posture, it's just you don't know how to say it, you don't like it, your clients don't respond, great. Well, then partner with a practitioner who does do movement and posture and likes it, and enroll your client in the significance of why it matters. Right? Find the benefit for them. I want you to be able to be strong and agile. I don't want you to have to move out of your dream home and move into a ranch. I don't want you to fear a flight of stairs. I don't want your back to be uncomfortable all the time chronically. And so I'm going to do the work I'm going to do, and you also need this other work to be done because this is how the body's designed. Once we know how the body's designed, we're hella smart. And then we can make recommendations based on the body's design, and that's what the body's asking for, always. It's always asking for us to make recommendations based on its design. Okay, so phasic and intrinsic, I think we've covered the two. We know the difference between the two. Highlighting again, intrinsic muscles have a twofold job, which is not joint action. Remember the twofold job, Gary? Want to go at it again? Intrinsic muscles, what's the job? Oh, we can't hear you now. Try again.
Posture,
Yes, and what's the
posture,
posture and twofold job?
balance.
Posture and balance. Posture and balance. It's like almost like using those two words like their own limerick a little bit. There's a little bit more to it. You said it at the start, Gary. Alignment, aligned posture, right? This is also posture. It's just not aligned posture. This with four balanced curves is aligned posture. So it's aligned posture. It's also posture that opposes gravity, right? And you can see it. If I take away the slouch, I'm pulling away from the earth. There's some methodologies like Alexander technique and Feldenkrais and dancing, where they have like puppet string ideas where you're grounded deeply in the earth and you're also pulling out the crown of your head. Eastern medicine does similar things. And every time I hear that, I'm like, that's intrinsic muscle action as well, because it's both. You're channeling energy and you're engaging intrinsically. So anytime you move away from the earth without a joint action, the posture. So if I take my arm up overhead, I'm moving my arm away from the earth, but that's a phasic action. There's a joint action here. Shoulder flexion is happening. Those are phasic muscles that are doing that job. The intrinsic muscles are the ones that are holding my spine upright. They're also muscles that we feel deep inside our body. Pelvic floor exercises, Kegels, stopping the flow of urine. Those muscles, if you engage them rigorously, you don't see anything moving because they're not phasic, they're intrinsic. So we don't see intrinsic engagement. We see restoration of posture. Like we see coming from a slouch position to an upright position. But once I'm upright and I'm continuing to engage those intrinsic muscles, I don't see anything happening. There's no movement involved in it. It's not like I'm moving my arm up over my head and bringing it back down again. You could see the movement occurring. Those are phasic muscles that do that. When intrinsic muscles are engaged, you don't see them. You can see the absence of them, slouching. You can see the absence of them, wobbling. But when they're engaged, there's no joint action. So we need to know what they do and how to get to them. And we'll talk about that probably next week when we're here for Tuesday training. The other thing we learned about intrinsic muscles today is balance includes one-legged standing. It's the easiest and I'd say probably the most comprehensive version of balance is the one-legged standing, but there's other places where we balance too. And I just heard somebody ask a question, well, what about vertigo? I'm not talking about vertigo. So there's other things that challenge balance that aren't intrinsic muscle related and they may not even be in our scope like vertigo. We don't treat vertigo necessarily. And I know some craniosacral folks, say that they do, and that's fine. I'm not arguing that whatsoever. But if we're looking for, is this a musculoskeletal, God bless you, is this a musculoskeletal issue or is this an other issue? The way to know that is to be able to identify what the musculoskeletal issue is and conclude this is what's happening or no, this isn't what's happening. This person does have upright posture and they can balance on one leg without even a wobble at the beginning, and the vertigo is still present or the dizziness is still present. We're not going to diagnose them as vertigo, but what we are going to say is it's not musculoskeletal. From my best assessment, it is not a lack of intrinsic muscles. It might be something else. You want to go look for that. So that's still helpful, right? You can still help a client. But when we start getting into like, oh, I'm a little bit dizzy and I can't quite stand upright and I don't feel what is a word that clients usually use? I don't feel sturdy. I don't feel sturdy. I don't feel grounded and rooted. The interesting thing with intrinsic muscles is you do feel grounded and rooted and balanced on the earth, not grounded and rooted like you're being pulled towards the earth. But you do still feel like you have a base. You don't feel like you're floating just because you're engaging intrinsic muscles. But if you are engaging intrinsic muscles, if your client is engaging intrinsic muscles, that wobbliness, that lack of sturdiness should go away when the issue that's causing that lack of sturdiness is a lack of intrinsic engagement. Once they engage intrinsically, they feel rooted again, grounded, stable, sturdy, and upright, and able to stand on one leg without feeling like they're a weeble wobble and they're going to fall over. So you got to work with your client to see, are they engaging? How are they engaging? How can you I spy that for them, especially because you can't see it happening, but you can see it happening. You can see it happening. They need to be in aligned posture for intrinsic muscles to be engaged, which means they must be in aligned posture for balance to be done through intrinsic muscle engagement, because that's their job. We can't balance on one leg and not have optimal posture. And we can't have optimal posture by engaging intrinsically and have no balance from intrinsic muscles. We can have optimal posture and have a loss of balance for other things that are not musculoskeletal, like I said, the vertigo, but then you'd be able to tell, like, oh, this isn't a musculoskeletal issue. I think my client might need to go see somebody because they shouldn't still be feeling dizzy when their posture's aligned and they're opposing gravity and all the intrinsic muscles are engaged. They shouldn't be feeling dizzy. In fact, it takes it away. So then you can start making conclusions on their behalf, right? But if we don't know intrinsic muscles and what they do, I hear a lot of practitioners saying, oh, well, maybe you have vertigo. Oh, maybe you have, things in your ears. Maybe you have crystals. Maybe you have this, maybe you have that. I'm like, maybe they just need to engage intrinsically. Why are you giving them a laundry list of diagnoses you can't help them with? Stop doing that. It doesn't help. Until you know, don't make it up. And how would you know? By engaging intrinsically. That is in your wheelhouse. So do that thoroughly, and then you'll be able to tell. Oh, well, they shouldn't be feeling dizzy if they're engaged intrinsically. Fully, thoroughly, heartily engage with optimal posture and able to engage those same muscles to also do balance at the same time. Yeah, there shouldn't be dizziness then. And that's how you know. But until you know, you don't know. You're guessing. Don't do that. Okay. So we've talked about phasic and intrinsic, the differences between them, how to I spy them. We talked about the two roles that intrinsic muscles possess, posture and balance, which includes aligned posture, which includes sturdy balance. They should be happening at the same time. We require these muscles on a daily basis just to walk. We know that now, or maybe we're being reminded of that. We require these muscles, but just like any other muscle in the body, if it's not present to do the job and the job is still being requested, the body will contort itself and figure out how to get it done, even if it's not optimal. So if you're asking, well, but Gina, people walk all the time. Aren't they just naturally intrinsically strong? No, not if their gait is askew. Not if when they walk, they actually do a little bit of this back and forth. That's the absence of intrinsic muscles, but their gait pattern could look like it's all there. But now that we know intrinsic muscles are part of one-legged standing, and one-legged standing is a part of gait, you'll be able to see, it looks like they're engaging both glute max when they hyperextend their hip, but they're doing the balance part's off. Okay, well, I need to give this person some focus work now on intrinsic strength. And that saves them a lifeline of musculoskeletal discomfort because they will be uncomfortable if they don't have strength in muscles that are required to do the job. They will be uncomfortable if they don't have muscles to do a job and another group of muscles is stepping in on behalf of. It's lovely that the body figures out how to do that. It's smarter than us sometimes, but it can only do that for so long. A muscle can only do a job that he's not designed to do full time for a short period of time full time. If a muscle's being asked to do a job that he's not supposed to do full time, but he's doing it like it is his full-time job, he will run out of steam, just like we would. If you're doing work for a coworker and they're on vacation, you'll do it for a week or two, but then after a while, you're like, this dude, please come back. I didn't get a raise. Like I can't handle this workload with, the payment here. The same thing goes for muscles. They'll get the job done, but at what risk of something else in the absence of these muscles? And that's true for both phasic and intrinsic, which is why I love for you guys to know your joint actions and know the muscle that's supposed to do the job and be able to identify that that muscle is actually doing the job so that you can mitigate and prevent musculoskeletal pain and injury just by getting the right muscle to do the job. And that's the responsibility of both manual and movement practitioners. Because again, if they're moving with you, they're either moving optimally or they're not moving optimally and creating a problem, slow grow over time. And if they're coming to you with that slow grow over time musculoskeletal discomfort, and you're a manual practitioner and you haven't remedied how they're moving, all you're doing is really supporting them on symptoms of the discomfort, but not what caused it. if you guys really want to get to what caused it, this is the kind of information you need. What's needed by the body to do the job? And is that need being met by the correct body part to do the job? And if not, what do I do to step in to remedy it? It's always the formula. And in this conversation today, we're talking about the intrinsic portion of it. So I recommend, don't get too overwhelmed on like all the parts, all the function, all the joints, all the muscles, all the things. Try not to get overwhelmed because it can happen. And I totally recognize that. You could just pile drive yourself with data and like feel a little like overwhelmed and kind of frozen. Don't do that. Just pick one thing and zero in on it and study it, study it, study it, study it until you have a good hold on it. You're super clear on what it does, how you interface with it, when it's needed, what you do about it, and then span back out again and take that piece that you deep dived with and take it back out and compare it to another part that you deep dived with. And then find the relationship between them. So, for example, today we talked about phasic and intrinsic. Okay, great. I want you to only focus on the intrinsic though, to the best of your ability. So what it's not phasic, it's intrinsic. Great. Today we talked about posture and balance with intrinsic muscles. Awesome. Once you have that deep dive, posture and balance on intrinsic muscles, then span back out again and go back to what you know about joint action and phasic muscles. And when am I supposed to have balance when I'm also doing another joint action? When do I need phasic muscles to do joint actions and intrinsic muscles to do intrinsic actions at the same time? And can I spy them both at the same time? But don't try to do it all at once. If you can't spy one, you can't spy any. So be able to spy one and then take it out and spy another, and then see if you can spy them at the same time. I really recommend doing it that way because it'll get you the results in the clarity that you're looking for much quicker. It doesn't help to just overwhelm yourself with data because then you can't sift through the data and make sense of it, right? Like even researchers take their time. Look at one thing thoroughly before you move on to the next thing. So we'll learn one part of functional anatomy thoroughly before you pile drive onto the next thing. And what would the next thing be? Well, we talked about it all day today, actually. Walking. In walking, I need one-legged standing, which is balance, and I need joint actions, which are all phasic. So again, just winking back to our Gait masterclass, you could take that information and go back to that masterclass and be like, which one of those steps of Gait is phasic? Which one of those steps of Gait is intrinsic? When does one need the other? When does one rely on the other? They all rely on each other. You can see them separately, you can see them together. If you can see them separately, you can spot treat and then weave it back in, and then Gait gets remedied. But if you try to do all of Gait and all the actions and all the joints and all the muscles all at one time, you won't really fix Gait. You just won't. You'll sort of like sweep things around, but it won't target what needs to be addressed. So I highly recommend deep, deep, get clear, deep, deep on something else, get clear, and then look at them together and see what that new relationship between the two things that you know well, what's the relationship between them and what does that tell you about what's needed in the body? Okay. Gary, see, don't jump there too fast because it feels overwhelming if you go too far too fast.
No, I just think it's so profound.
Oh,
It's
great.
not it's not overwhelming. It's just part of the missing pieces.
Hmm.
It's like, oh, this is it. I understand in
Aha.
your development how this like, okay, now I got it.
Yeah, good. Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
How's it landing for you guys who are here watching live? I see you guys are here. How's it landing? Is it feeling profound for you too? Or is it just Gary and me? I don't think it is. I think it's pretty universal. Let me know how it's landing for you guys. If it's making sense, give me a thumbs up and let me know it's making sense for you. I want it to make sense for you. We're going to focus on this for the month of April. Also, those of you in the club, Gary and the rest, our intrinsic Cultivating the Intrinsic Core full course is in the club this month, so you'll have access to the entire course and all the workshopping that goes with that course and the handouts that go with that course. That's all part of your club membership for the month of April. So if you have not yet joined us in the club and this content interests you and you think a deep dive into the course would work, come be my guest, join us for 7 days. It's no obligation. You could just come and take the course for 7 days and all the other goodies in the club. and you can leave if it doesn't light you up, or you could stay and we would love to continue to pour into you month after month. But that's what we're focused on in the club for the month of April. And we're also going to focus on that here in Tuesday training. So I'm going to bring you another viewpoint of intrinsic muscles each week as we move through Tuesday training. And if you're wondering, well, what's the difference? You're going to do it here in Tuesday training. Well, no, we take a super deep dive. It's several hours of coursework plus workshopping and all the rest in that course, which is included in the membership. It's not extra. We don't even have the same amount of hours in Tuesday training this month. So we're definitely covering more there. It's not repeated information. So we sort of highlight here on Tuesday training and give us some good thinking points to go. And then if you really want to use this information to support your work as a manual or a movement practitioner, then you probably want to take the course, and that's what's available for the month of April. Okay. And also in the month of April, if you guys have not yet heard the good news, it's summit season at the Shots Method. So we have our 3-day annual live complimentary on the house. It's my gift to you and the gift of all the speakers, our 3-day summit. I have 17 expert speakers coming to pour into you for 3 days. You don't have to come live, but it's always encouraged for you to do that. You can also catch the replays. Each speaker has something to share with you for their time on stage with me during the summit. They also have downloadable free training for you. You register for the event, you have access to all that. And for those of you who do come live, there's also extra training every year we do this because we know it's during billable hours. So if you come to the summit during the live training, you'll get extra bonus training in addition to what's already being offered as my way of acknowledging you for being there during working hours. And I have enlisted all of the presenters to do the same thing. So it's like a ton of training this year, 3 days. April 15th, 16th, and 17th, 3 days. I will put the link below this video. It's also probably on the YouTube channel. It's, of course, in the club, in the classroom calendar, so you can grab the link there and join us through that. You can also invite friends. Again, it's completely complimentary. But it is happening on the 15th, our first day, which is a Tuesday, 2 weeks from today, which means we're not going to be here in Tuesday training. So if you're used to coming here live during this window of time, and this is the only live window that you've carved out for yourself, awesome. Come to the summit instead and get the goodness that's being bestowed upon us through the summit. And then you can watch the rest of it on replay if you want to do that. So April 15th, 16th, and 17th, we have our 3-day annual summit. Tons of training, lots of viewpoints, lots of goodies this year. And we will not be having Tuesday training that day. So we'll send you a replay for a different Tuesday training if you want to really get your dose in for the day. And then we'll see you live at the summit itself. Okay. Any last questions, Gary, before we wrap up? No, you ready for Intrinsic Core this month in the club? Yeah, diving into the coursework. Okay, we got you covered. And also, we have
Thank
a
you.
study group every week as part of the club community. So our advocates are there who've taken Intrinsic Core and use it as part of our method, our methodology. So they're very familiar with the ins and outs of intrinsic. They've been grilled, I mean, practiced and studied, but grilled for years on this topic. So they're going to run study groups for you this month too. So you can get lots of extra support around Intrinsic Core. All right, my friends, I'll see you guys same time, same channel next week. Until then, continue to do great work in the world. I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Bye for now.